Hi, everyone. It's Anita Massey again, Director of Marketing at Trivista Companies, and you're listening to Trivista's new podcast series, Small Talks. Today, our topic is Parts Purchasing 101, and today's talk is actually a follow-up conversation to an earlier podcast we did on RepairLink. And during that conversation, we were joined by Brian Lee, Assistant Parts Manager, and Tony Rainbolt, Parts Counter Specialist, each from our Trivista Louisville, Kentucky dealership. And they're both back with us today. So thanks again for joining us, guys.
No problem.
Thanks for having us back.
Absolutely. So the last time we were together, like I say, we discussed the various ways that a customer could place a parts order with Trivista. And because we're always striving to make our customers' experience as easy and stress-free as possible, we're going to expand on that conversation a little bit. So, Tony, why don't you jump in and explain what our focus is going to be on today?
Okay. So one of the things that we try to do is be as quick and efficient as we can, looking up parts and getting the correct part for everybody. And one of the things that we deal with is how to start. So people that have been in the trucking industry for a while know that with a VIN number, you can get the actual build of the truck, the specifics on how it was built. But the average person and the person coming into it don't realize. So when you have a part or you have a truck that you own, if you have a vehicle, a small car or a pickup truck, you go to the lot, you might buy an LX or an XT or a version of that vehicle. They're all built that way. When you have a truck, it's specifically built for someone's specifications. So when we order one for the lot, if it's just going to sit on our lot, we'll build it to a local company's specs in case if they would need an extra truck when we get it, and or that's what's in this region. So for a good example, you wouldn't want an excess heating system or a built-in shoreline kit or a lot of things for somebody that deals with something in Alaska versus what we have here. We've had some cold days recently, but for the most part, we don't get in the negatives, like they do there, where they have to have engine oil heaters, engine block heaters. They have to have a lot of things to make the truck warm to be able to start the truck, where here we don't deal with that. So you kind of build it, for that region or for that area. When you look at that, you can buy, for example, we'll use a Ford truck. If you buy a Ford truck, you can get an XL, an XLT, King Ranch, I think is one of the editions, and a Platinum. All of those are done with a spec in mind. So a customer can go in and buy those, and they might have one or two small things that they add, and then you can go to any local parts place and say, well, I have this model. They'll ask you if it's four-wheel drive, what engine you have, and can get most of your parts. If you come in here and say, well, I have a 4300, it's a 2017. That truck could have been built for somebody in Las Vegas, somebody in California, somewhere in Canada. That truck wasn't necessarily built for a specific spec. So with the last 8 of the VIN number, that's what we need to be able to tell you what you have. Mm-hmm. That's one of the key things for us that's crucial. Every manufacturer has a system. PACCAR and some of your Peterbilt and other people use 6 of the VIN number, where we, for International and Mitsubishi, both use 8. When you use the last 8 characters of the VIN number, you can put that in, and it will show us exactly how that truck was built.
Yeah, the exact build sheet, how it was built from the factory, from the manufacturer.
All of those specifics that he was describing based on regionality and intended use.
Yes.
So you could have 2 trucks of the same year, make, and model, but they're spec'd completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Which is then going to drive what I guess we're getting ready to talk about here in a minute is because they're the exact same year, make, and model, but because they're spec'd different, then each customer that comes in is going to be needing different parts because of the way it's spec'd.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so can you talk about what that would look like for those 2 matching trucks on somebody's lot?
Yeah, so I have a specific example and where it plays in. I had a guy who basically has a mail hauling service, has 2 trucks. The VIN numbers are one off. He said, they're sister trucks. Give me, the part for it. He said, here's the other VIN number. They're all the same. The all the same thing just doesn't hapen. Yeah. We have so many people tell us, just get me one, it's all the same. It's not all the same.
Meaning the parts are not all the same? Or
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So they'll come in and they'll say, hey, I need a thermostat. Okay, what's it on? Well, just, it's on an International. Give me one. They're all the same. They're not.
In fact, they're not.
You can have so many variations. So this particular instance, we needed a belt. and the belt on the truck had broken, and the VIN numbers were one off from each other. He said, "It's got the same engine. It has everything the same. Give me a belt." And I said, "Well, do you have the other VIN number?" I said, "If they're one off, just tell me what the number is." I said, "I'll figure it out." So I took the other VIN number, the correct one, looked up a belt, got it for him, looked up the second truck, which is one VIN number off. So instead of, I think it was an 8 to a 9, it could have been a 7 to an 8.
In the
but
series
in the
of
series
numbers,
of
you mean.
numbers.
Okay.
So the last number was the only digit off. The belt was over 4 inches longer because they had a different alternator on there with a different mounting bracket that put it in a different location, which set the alternator farther out, which you needed more belt to route to it. So if I would have got him the other one, it would not have been the same. And then we would have been the bad guy because you sold him the wrong part.
Right.
And that's one of those things. We try to get you the correct part the first time as efficient as we can. With the VIN numbers, we can give you everything the way it was built at International.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is one of the first things that a customer that's listening to this needs to understand, that in order to make the parts purchasing process as easy and stress-free and accurate as possible is, first of all, they need to, if possible, know their VIN number.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the things that you did for us, our lovely marketing team got us a card, and basically with that, we can put their account number on it, and we also can put their VIN number. So that's at the Louisville location. You know, if you're one of the customers and listen to the Louisville location, come to the parts counter. My name's Tony, or anybody up there has the cards. We basically made a card that's a business card that you can take a picture of, or you can put it in your wallet. It puts your account number and your VIN number on there. If you have multiple VIN numbers, you can put them on the back, or we can tag them to a file or something else.
Or give more cards out.
But it makes it so handy because we have a lot of gentlemen that come in that don't speak fluent English, and you have regional names as well as last names in different places. So if they come in and they tell one guy, it's this name, John Smith, or let's say it's John Smith Williams, however you want to say it, they might have 3 or 4 accounts before we know it because they don't use the same name every time. When people come in, if you're a business, you're, for example, one of the ones that we deal with quite a bit, M&M Cartage. You have a business name. You're an LLC. Where if it's an individual, for me, my name's Tony. Everybody knows me as Tony. My God-given name's Anthony. So if I come in and use Anthony Rainbolt one time, come and use Tony Rainbolt one time, then come and use my middle name, I'd have a third count. So with those cards and your VIN number, it makes it so much easier because we have your account name that you want everything to run under, which helps us find anything for warranty or see what you've purchased, and you have your VIN number on it. It's a simplifying process that basically, I tell everybody, if you don't want to carry a business card, take a picture on your phone, pin it to your favorites. So now every time you come in, these days everyone has a phone with them. It's within your reach everywhere you go. So you basically can have that pinned to you because it's very, very crucial for us to have that VIN number to be able to accurately get you that. Okay. Another thing that we can kind of go into, unless you have a question on that, I can explain to you the reason why it needs to be that way on aftermarket parts as well.
I guess I'm just curious. So if a customer, because I do know we have multilingual customers, if they come in and we're not sure what their account is under, I guess we ask them first, do you have an account with us? And if they don't know, how do you find them? How do you search?
So one of the tricks that we use is we basically can search multiple ways. We can search partial by first name, by last name. If it comes up under multiple, if they were nice enough to give us their phone number, we can use the phone number. Okay. Sometimes people don't want to give that information. I have one gentleman that comes in a lot. He literally wants his tickets to say Mr. Cash. Okay. and he always pays with a credit card, which makes no sense because,
right.
If he's worried about being tracked, then, the credit card's going to do that, but the thing is, he just don't want his name on things. So he has Mr. Cash as his account, Okay. But for them, we can take a phone number, associate a phone number, an address, a VIN number. I can do a search by each of those fields to help get the right thing. So if whoever did the original invoice, hey, do you have a zip code? Do you have a phone number? Anything we can add. Right. A lot of people don't have a 502 area code for their phones. Even though they live here, they might have started somewhere else. That has hurt us more than once because there was a gentleman who was a Altoona customer that moved out here. And when we brought it up, I was like, well, that can't be right. I said, did you ever live anywhere out west? Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, well, cool. So we just brought his account and used it for here. So the phone number helped me find it by his, because his name, there was multiple listings. He had I don't want to say a generic, but a very common name. Okay. So his common name, we had 7 listings local, and there were several for different locations because we're all on the same computer system now. So we can see everybody's account from different areas.
Yeah, and it's just, just to make sure that, we're following the correct processes and, ensuring that, like Tony said, that we have some kind of history, for this person's account, because if they order something and say something goes wrong with it, and it's going to be a warranty, then we would have to look up, under that account to see whenever this person bought that part.
Exactly. So we've been talking about OE parts, original equipment parts. Are we going to talk about aftermarket parts?
Yeah. So one of the things you'll get, I get a lot of customers that come in, and let's say they have a Cummins engine and they want to get something. If it's in our international chassis, with that VIN number, we can do the specifications. When we pull up our build sheet, we'll get the engine serial number, because that's what you need to look up a Cummins part, would be the engine serial number. Mm-hmm. If you have a chassis that's not ours, let's say you have a engine in a Freightliner or a Dodge truck that you have a Cummins engine in, you can bring that serial number into us. We can use that serial number to look that up. That way, well, we use the serial number of the engine. Bypass the actual chassis and just do the engine. Now, some of the things that, if it's an exhaust part, we only go so far back with Cummins, so then it might go back to that chassis manufacturer. So we have to kind of see what part they're needing and how they're doing it. We can do the same thing, Cummins, Caterpillar, we can do Allison, a lot of
Allison transmissions,
Rockwell, Meritor,
Eaton Fuller.
Yes, all of those. If we have the serial number of that, and that's for transmissions, rear ends, we can do a lot of the stuff there. When you get into some of the aftermarket stuff, the only thing when somebody says, "Well, it's all the same," the only thing that's the same could be fluids. But even nowadays, fluids are different. You have different synthetics specifications. So we have one Eaton transmission that takes one fluid and one fluid alone.
Right.
No other transmission takes that.
So how do you know, though? I mean, do you have a list somewhere, I guess?
It's so hard to do. So what we have to do is we use that engine serial number or that component
and
serial number.
Completely
and it'll be in that specification.
Yes, okay. It's in that specification. Right. So that's why we say we try to use it to the best of our ability, to be able to, with those specifications and that unit number or that serial number, we can tell you what that vehicle takes. Okay. And that's where it's kind of important for us. So if you come in and you say, I need transmission fluid, right off the bat, the first thing I could do is ask you if it's a manual or automatic. That's going to narrow some of them down. Okay. But then when you say, okay, it's an automatic, right now in our showroom floor, I have 6 choices, not including what's in the back. So we have so many different automatic transmission fluids. You can't just say,
you can't
give
guess.
it to me. And if you mix the wrong things, you could burn the transmission.
That's what I was getting ready to ask.
And then if we sell the wrong fluid, then that comes back on us, as the dealership.
So the customer could come back. If that were to happen, the customer could potentially come back to us as the dealer and say, you blew up my engine or you caused my engine to blow up, and we could be liable for that?
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah. So that's the reason why it's so important to us to find out. Allison is very particular. When you have a warranty with an Allison transmission, I have seen this over the years here at, originally it was Ools and now Trivista, but also in the fire department. I worked here part-time while I was a fireman. And as a fireman, we had an Allison transmission in one of our fire trucks that started going bad. There was 4 representatives that come from Allison, since it was going to be a warranty thing, at different intervals, and put a big long tube down the dipstick to be able to make sure that it had the correct fluid in it. Had it not had the correct fluid in it, we were going to have to eat that transmission.
Yeah, it voids the warranty.
It voids the warranty. So they are, and the thing of it is, to cover them, since it's such an expensive piece, especially on a fire truck, because you have extensive labor with a fire pump and other things, they had 4 different individuals test that fluid, so they can say, yes, this person did it on this date, this person did it on this date. We're 100% sure, it is a warranty thing, it needs to be warranted. So they get very thorough. So if your truck's under warranty and you have a leak, let's say a hose, malfunctions on you, and you just put any fluid back in it, and you don't put the correct fluid, you call Allison, hey, my transmission's under warranty. Sure, bring it in, we'll look at it. Allison gets there, realizes they've got the wrong fluid in it. They will not warranty that, right? Because you have put the wrong thing in it, which caused the failure. So it's very crucial. So
what do you advise the customer? Is the customer supposed to know the fluids? Is there when you buy a truck, And is it like in the owner's manual? It's not, right? Because those are general.
A lot of the engine viscosities, the engine weights, and the engine oil will be in the manufacturer's book. Your power steering fluid, your antifreeze, a lot of that information is in there. When it comes to transmission and rear ends, the rear end should show the fluid on the actual build sheet, so we would know the specific weight. But the transmission kind of goes back to the manufacturer.
Right.
So with that manufacturer, sometimes when you get a new truck, it will have a separate Allison or a separate, Eaton Fuller book in it. If it does not, you can always go by the line set. We can pull it up and see what fluid it takes.
But again, it's just, that's why it's so critical to have that information. That way they can get it to us. That way we can ensure that we're getting them exactly what the truck calls for.
Right. So what do you do in a situation where, someone that is coming in that doesn't speak our language and they're trying to communicate they need fluids and they don't have their VIN number? What do you do? We just don't sell them anything? We tell them they have to come back?
A lot of times, I'm pretty resourceful. I've come up with different ways of getting a VIN number. I've got a VIN number from an insurance card. I've got a VIN number from having somebody call that was near the truck that got it for us. You can call your insurance company when you're here because you have it insured to be able to tag it. I've used registrations to get VIN numbers.
But the bottom line is you can't sell them the fluid without that
Right.
VIN number.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing with it is, if you guess, you're gonna
You're
you
guessing
could guess wrong,
possibly.
and at that point, I don't want that liability back on me and or them.
Right.
So with a lot of my Spanish-speaking people, we do some through Google Translate. I know a little bit of Spanish, but you would be surprised how many times that I draw on a piece of paper and sketch. And I can draw a transmission that's rough and draw an engine that's rough and point, and then they'll draw. We've went back to caveman days and literally ciphered in between the two drawings to figure it out. And you have to have a little bit of initiative, and you have to have a little bit of want to do it.
And patience, too.
Yeah. Well, and also with that language barrier, like if we get kind of close to, like Tony's saying, in the area, we can also show them the screen that we're looking at. That way they can also see what we're looking at. Okay. And from there we can, find out exactly what they're needing.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize it was quite that level of detail on fluids, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I never knew.
So,
is it the same way in cars?
It is.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, again, it's a little easier in cars.
Yeah,
because
very much so.
with the car, you don't have as many specifications and so many different things. There wasn't synthetics. There wasn't synthetic blends. There wasn't lightweights, heavyweights. There were so many things with evolution, better engines, more efficient engines, and it just keeps evolving.
Well, and some of those
more.
things get proprietary, through whoever the manufacturer
Right,
is.
purposefully. They
Yes.
mean to do that.
Yes.
So I know one of the topics we were going to talk about was universal parts. So I'm guessing fluids is not considered a universal part. That's not something that would be considered.
If you have, some things like washer fluid,
okay.
that's, clearly something like that is, any vehicle can use it.
Even nowadays with antifreeze. So antifreeze used to be there was only 2 manufacturers of antifreeze in the world. So there was only 2 at one point, and those 2 sold to everyone else who put their name on it. Peak, Prestone, whoever it was. There was only 2 places that made the ethylene glycol. Now you have different types of antifreeze. You have extended life. So if somebody comes in and says, I've got this color antifreeze, some of us, it's been around for a while. There's purple, there's red, there's yellow, there's green, there's blue.
There's concentrated.
There's
a 50-50 blend.
Yeah, there's so many ways. So the only thing that's universal anymore really is, like he said, your washer fluid, because with that you're either getting -20 or -32. You kind of get a little bit more weather resistant. But really, in the aftermarket world, if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I have a Freightliner," and with that, if they have their serial number, a lot of us that work in a parts department have friends at other dealers because they call with one of their customers having international. I might call them one of our Freightliners. So
and we all go back and forth and help each other.
We try to help each other.
You have to, it's got to work like that. Everybody's got to work together.
Exactly.
If they would have their VIN number, we can call and try to get a specification. But if not, we have certain catalogs and certain books. Our Fleet Right book, which has a lot of our aftermarket parts, is good when it comes to certain things. So if you know the year range on a Cascadia, one of Freightliner's models, their headlights stayed the same for a certain range. There was no choice in them. So I know if you come in and you tell me I have a 2016 to a 2020 or so in there, if you need a headlight, I can get you the headlight because they didn't change them. Now, if there's options on them, I couldn't do that because it's not necessarily in that book. It's more dealer specific. Some of the exhaust parts on older trucks that didn't have DPFs and other things, back then it was so easy. You literally, before we put all the emissions and everything on it, you either had a 4 in, 5 out, or a 5 in, 5 out, and you measured the diameter of a muffler. That's the only thing you need to know. And we can get them for anybody. Where now you have DPF systems where a lot of those are Cummins. So if you get us the serial number off that, I can get you the parts off those.
Yeah, we can get you the DPF, which is a diesel particulate filter.
Right. Which we do the cleanings for.
Yes. Yes.
So a lot of this, or it sounds like all of this really is a product of the industry's, reach towards sustainability and cleaner environment and all of that. That's what's driving this. Okay.
So with universal parts, a hypothetic, if you have a Peterbilt and you needed something that you think is a Spicer part or a Dana part, which almost every dealer carries, we all carry generally close to the same thing. What it is we have our
U-joints,
part number.
for drive shafts and drive lines. We can measure,
yokes and different things. So if they would call Freightliner, and for example, they call Freightliner, and Freightliner says it's a SPL 100, which is a U-joint. They don't have one there. They're sold out of them. They can order one in. If that customer's down and wants his truck up and running, he deals with us. He might call and say, hey, Tone, I got an SPL 100. Freightliner gave me this number. Can you do anything with it? I would put that in our fleet cross it. Yeah, I've got it under this number. Got it. And we work vice versa with each other. There's another local company here that does drivelines in town, and they've called me more than once. Hey, I'm out of this yoke number. My number is this. Can you cross it to something? So then I'll take that Dana number, look at it. We kind of add prefixes or suffixes on it for who the vendor is that we deal with, but the overall number usually is the same.
Yeah.
So, for example, for us, when we get a Grody part, we put a prefix of a ZBJ. So the Grody number would be there, for example, a 43001. If somebody calls and say, hey, I got a Grody 43001, we'll say, okay, well, let me look. We type in ZBJ 43001, we pull it up. We either have it or don't, but we have prefixes and suffixes on ours just like everybody else. But that universal part, a lot of your lighting when it comes to trailer lighting, some of your marker lights, bulbs, you'll get into driveline pieces. Wheels are one of the things that are universal. You kind of need to know the width and size, of the wheel that you have. But if you can give me let's say you have a 22.5 by 8.25, which is a very common wheel, we can get that, with no problem.
Or like wheel seals.
Yes, wheel seals, brakes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are used from chassis to chassis.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it really helps if we start with a code. If we start with a line set ticket to where we can see what the truck was built with, that is the best way to do it. There is other ways around it. We can, if you have the part off the truck, we can try to match that part. You get into a hard problem because everything's not put back there starting with the first yoke and ending with the last yoke. So when we have them on the shelf, it's not like I can walk back to one big row of all the same part, look at them and see which ones you have. Sometimes they're in this location, sometimes they're in that location. We have a Dana Spicer location. We have an international location for drivelines. It's so hard to try to do it by matching. It is possible, but it lengthens the process.
Yeah, it can take a little bit of time.
When you have more information for us, that's one of the main things that I wanted to get out there is we're trying to be as accurate and fast as we can be for you. Help us help you by having some of those serial numbers and VIN numbers ahead of time, and it'll help speed up the process and increase the accuracy. I can go back and grab anything. That doesn't mean it's going to be right.
Well, and in this industry, time is money. If your truck or if your trailer's down, you're losing money. So that's why it is very critical for us to get the accurate information, get the accurate parts for you, for the customer. That way we can get them up and running.
And it sounds like with every truck or trailer that we sell, we are giving them that spec sheet that shows or lists everything as to how their vehicle was spec'd when it was built. So they have that information. It's just a matter of educating them so that they know to bring it with them or take a photo of it or something.
Right.
There's one of our salesmen here, and every time when he sells a truck, he'll come up to me because I print them off for him all the time. I'll print him a spec sheet, and he gives it to them when they get the truck. Yeah. So usually when they pick it up, like he's, when they're doing their final inspection, do everything, he'll have a little folder, and it has the spec sheet in there to where they can go back and put it in their file. Best case, they at least have the VIN number, and it also has the manufacturer's date, paint code, and a couple other things on it. Yeah. When we do our VIN numbers, you basically put a VIN number in, and it'll bring, the last 8 of that VIN number brings up that chassis. When it brings it up at the very top, I can give you a paint code, a key code of what it was originally built with. I can give you all the information when it left Navistar. The older a truck gets, the more opportunity that something's been changed. So if you have a 2023 truck and it's 2024, key cylinder is probably the same. If you have a 1979 truck, I'm betting it's probably not the same.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I could tell you what it was when it left Navistar, but it doesn't mean it's a guarantee when it gets to like a key code. Other people have called to get prop codes, and for us, that's
what's a prop code?
A prop code is the propeller or the drive shaft code. So what you'll do is if you have a drive shaft that comes out of a truck due to age, not maintaining, or just driver neglect, if you have a one that basically loses a drive line, with a prop code, we can order a drive shaft for you that's pre-made, pre-balanced, and it comes shipped, ready to go. You literally bolt it in. But there's local companies that will take that prop code and try to replicate the drive shaft. We've got into the past where sometimes their measurements aren't the same.
A little bit off.
They'll be just a little bit off, and then it's a little too long, a little too short. For us, Navistar does all that internal. We have a company that builds our drive shafts, so that way we know it's correct the first time, we order it in, and it comes shipped ready to go in. When they manufacture them, there's anything, anything mechanical is subject to failure, but also any measurement that a human takes, you can be inaccurate. With them, it's preset, it's done. You literally cue in a button, they send it to their guy, and it's finished. So that's another reason it's so important, to have that VIN number. When you do the VIN number, certain driveline components, when you look at those, started as an international part number, and now they've superseded to a Dana Spicer number. So Navistar is using, they'll tell you, hey, it was this part number, I'm just going to use a for example number, a 2513 285C1. That was the original. Well, now it's actually a Dana 1705 28X. They'll let you know you use this part in place of that. It's been superseded to this. And there's a lot of things like that. I know on the DPFs, they start life with an international number, but it's truly built by Cummins for some of the DPFs. So it'll end up being a Cummins part number when it's all said and done. Some of the starters are a Navistar number that go to a Delco
Remy,
or a
Lease-Neville.
Lease-Neville. There's a lot of companies that Navistar uses, that the part's superseded to. That's a very common thing now. And like I said, in the old days, you wouldn't trust a lot of the aftermarket stuff. You thought it would be less quality because it was less money. Nowadays, you really can. I mean, it's manufacturing has come so much, far in advance, and further than what it used to be.
So in that case, it's not really aftermarket if Navistar's sourcing it,
correct.
Right.
It's, I mean, they still consider it aftermarket, but to me, if that's what they're telling you, then that's the OEM.
What they're telling you.
Yes.
Okay, so then what about cost? Are OEM parts typically more expensive, or is that a myth as well?
It's really hit or miss. I mean, to be 100% honest with you, you can't. I can't give you.
You can say yes
answer.
and no.
Yeah, you can say
it just
yes and no.
depends on the part.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It really depends on what part it is. When it comes to seals, I have a Navistar number in the back that is the true Navistar number. When you open it up, it's a CR seal on the inside. If you buy that CR seal, you're paying $3 more than what you buy the Navistar number for. They're the exact same part. It's just in two different boxes. Who manufacture? We got it from them, and we put it in. Navistar puts it in a box. It's so hard to say.
Right.
Well,
especially nowadays, it sounds like there's just so much integration.
And just with pricing, with things like that, I mean, it goes back and forth. You could have an aftermarket part that's cheaper, and then the next year that international number could end up being cheaper than the aftermarket. It's just how the market is.
Yeah, I just know a lot of customers, I've heard people say, oh, well, if you go to the dealership, it's going to cost more. Regardless, it's like a general statement that they assume having your vehicle worked on or buying parts from a dealership is more expensive. And it
I
sounds
think
like
it's a
that's
common misconception.
yeah. I think
Because
you're right.
I have a lot of aftermarket local vendors, a lot of WDs or wholesale distributors that will call me, hey, I don't have this part. It's for an international truck. See what you can get it for. And I'll look it up and I'll tell them, dang, that's cheap. That's cheaper than what I sell it.
Really?
And I hear that quite a bit. So that is a misconception because sometimes we're not as bad. Everybody thinks, oh, dealer, that's going to be horrible. But we're really competitively priced.
So it sounds like, just to summarize, that really the largest challenge you guys have from the parts perspective, or the parts on the part side of the counter, is that you are challenged in finding the right part because you just don't know the right VIN number, or you don't know exactly what the VIN or the code is on the engine or something. So the number one takeaway for a customer to help make the parts purchasing process easier for them would be to know your VIN number and to know your proper account name if you have one set up, and just basically bring your spec sheet if you can. So guys, we're nearing the end of our time today. Is there anything else that you would like to add, or maybe that we didn't touch on or need to clarify a little bit? No.
The thing of it is, just keep in mind, we have so many different manufacturers that we deal with. We try to be as quick and efficient as we can. If we don't have that other information and we're flying blind and we're having to call another dealer to try to get you a part number or anything, just be patient with us. And hopefully this will help them understand it's not just as simple as typing in 1, 2, 3 and you need a number 7 off this picture. There's codes, there's variations, there's different wheel sizes, there's different, gear ratios, there's different viscosities. There's so many variables in it that it's kind of it's a trick each time we do it. Like you said, a puzzle to put together. So, with a little bit of patience, we try to be as quick and as efficient as we can, but with that other information, if you can have just the VIN number or the engine serial number or that component serial number, it will help us skip so many small steps and be able to help you more effective.
Okay, perfect. Good advice.
And again, it's just to ensure that we get the customer the right part that they need.
Absolutely. That's the goal at the end of the day.
Correct.
Okay, well, thanks again, Tony and Brian, for taking time to share this valuable perspective on parts purchasing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be helpful for all of our current and soon-to-be customers. If anybody would like to learn more or place a parts order or get signed up for RepairLink, they can reach us at www.trivistacompanies.com. See you next time.